First of all, let me just say that I'm Hal Ottaway with the Wichita Postcard Club, and I want to call the meeting to order. We're going to ask Alan to please mute everyone. So we're this in order to cut down on background noise, and we're going to be making a copy of this that will be available later on YouTube. And that way, the sirens going by, or the dogs barking, or cats meowing, grandchildren, wives, husbands, we've had everything. So I think this will work out pretty nice to have a good, clear sound in the background, or no sound, really. But uh, we're if you have comments or questions that you want to make, if you'll please open your chat window, then that will give you a place where you can type your question. And we'll collect those. We have our friend Bill Burton here today from Delaware. He's going to be joining us each time if he works out. We'll see. But he's going to be here to watch for the questions and to watch for hands raising and things like that. So at the end of the presentation, we can go over those questions and get some answers, hopefully, to all of everybody. But we're pleased to have Bill Burton, and why don't I just let him say hello?
Okay. As Hal said, my name is Bill Burton. I live in Dover, Delaware, but I am the exalted publisher of Postcard History online magazine. I say exalted because Ray Hahn really runs the shop, and I sweep up and clean the bathrooms on weekends. But we're doing rather well with this thing, and it's a very important medium for people who use the internet and are interested in postcards. What's even more, however, interesting is what Hal and Alan are doing as we speak now with these Zoom meetings. And I'm really grateful to both of you, and I think we all should be grateful to both of you for what you've done on this. And so this is a bounce pass back to you, Hal.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bill. We're just delighted to have everybody here. And it's the first time we've had a joint meeting with another club. And it's the Wichita Postcard Club and the Western New York Postcard Club. In a little bit, we'll show a map so people can zero in and see where Rochester is in association, and where it is from New York City and all of this. And we'll likewise show you a map of good old Kansas at an appropriate time, so you'll see where Wichita is. But we're just pleased to have everybody. I want to introduce our two hosts today along with myself. It's Michael Block and Rick Schaefer, both of them from the Rochester area, both very involved with the Western New York Postcard Club. And what we thought we would do is that each of us will talk about our own club, and we'll go through that now, and then we will show some postcards and pictures of our area, and to give you kind of some flavor about where we live and what it is like around here, and also about our club. We're interested in talking about what we've done and what we've brought together. I'm just still amazed right now. I'm very pleased. We have 45 participants here today, a bunch of new people that have never been, not only from the Western New York, but from Wichita too. But I'll save all of those details for later. But Michael Block, let's start with you, and also with Rick, please. And let's tell us about your club.
Okay, thank you very much, Hal. It's nice to be here and welcome everybody. Our club, which is based in Rochester, the Western New York Postcard Club, was started in 1975, and we hold meetings, during the not during a pandemic. We hold meetings almost every month of the year. Certain months we don't. And but since the pandemic, we've been doing Zoom meetings. So we've actually had more meetings, and it's been nice because we've been able to get speakers from all over the country that otherwise we wouldn't be able to get. We're not a huge club. We have about 50 members, and most all of those are local to the local area. We have a few members from out of town, but the majority of them are local. And we have a email list. If you would like to get notified of our upcoming meetings, you can go to our website, which is in the chat. It's WNYpostcardclub.com, and you can opt into the email list, and then you'll get the invitations to the Zoom meetings and information about any other meetings. We have an annual postcard show and sale. Coincidentally, it's the same exact weekend as the Wichita's postcard show, and on the third weekend of October. We weren't able to do it last year, and hopefully we'll be able to do it this year. We have it tentatively planned. And maybe Rick would like to say something else about our club.
Yes, I hope. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. This is a mystery to me. Yeah, we have a very diverse membership, and we meet once a month, and we don't necessarily talk about postcards every month. 1 month we had a local historian, who talked about the KODAK kids, and the KODAK kids were the children of Eastman Kodak employees in England who were brought over here by the company during the Battle of Britain to get away from the bombing, and stayed here for the duration of World War II, and about how they lived in the homes of Eastman Kodak employees here in Rochester, and the relationships that developed. And we have another member who's with us today, Jeff Vincent, who is very involved in local history, who has talked about development in the suburbs and how beautiful areas were destroyed by 6-lane highways. And he showed us photographs of the before and after. And another member who is not here, who inherited a huge collection of photo postcards, has talked about his collection. And so our meetings are always rather wild and crazy, and they always extend past the 1 hour, and they usually end up around 2 hours or 2.5 hours. And it's nice to be around people with interests, who actually read books and have a visual sense. And these are all qualities that are becoming increasingly rare. And so it's a breath of fresh air once a month. And this is also, and to meet new people. All of you are new to us. I have a friendship now with Jeffrey Lagenstein, who's I see there in New York City. You're all people we didn't know really existed before the pandemic. So there is something good that's come out of this virus, and it's meeting all of you and knowing about the greater world of postcards.
Don't forget, it's Michael, not Jeffrey.
Right.
Right?
Michael. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Michael.
Yes. Rick, thank you for the book.
Oh, yeah, I'm glad you got it. I'm glad.
Oh my God. I owe you big time.
Oh, no.
I haven't read it yet.
Michael, you're an artist, right? You design postcards.
I do, yes. And I'm looking.
Let me, I'll jump in here and tell a little bit about the Wichita Postcard Club. We were founded a couple of years after the Western New York, actually. They were 75, and according to our records, we came along in 1977. And it all started because of a book that several of us wrote for the bicentennial. That was kind of our contribution to the bicentennial, a book called Peerless Princes of the Plains, and it was looking at Wichita history during that golden era of postcards through postcards. And so anyway, it was giving a talk on that subject that brought an audience together, and it turned out that a lot of them were postcard collectors. Literature, or a piece of paper was sent around, everyone signed up, and Bert Jones is the man who organized and found us a meeting place in the city library, things like that. Anyway, Susan has introduced him a little bit earlier here today, but Phil McDaniels is our newsletter editor, and I think, well, certainly our membership is familiar and aware of that, and we're making arrangements through Phil to share that newsletter, this particular March issue, telling about this meeting, but share that with everyone so you can see what we have. I think that a newsletter is really good if you can get somebody like Phil to do all the work. And it's less work now than it used to be, but still there's a lot to it. And it's like putting on an event like this. Anyway, it's been a lot of fun. We have a member roster that's popular in that it has a spiral binding and lays flat on your desk. It doesn't clamp up like when you're trying to find something. But there's a list by states in the back of all of our members, where they live. Then you can go read more about, get their details. But that has been a boon to our membership to travel and slip it in with their luggage when they're going anywhere almost, and having a contact along the way. And of course, it's even easier today with email and with WhatsApp and so forth. You can get right in there and make plans ahead. So that's been helpful. I see Dennis McBurney here today from Pennsylvania. He used to live in Wichita, and darn it, he moved to Pennsylvania. But he's a worker. He's a creative person in the visual arts, so to speak, and he's very computer savvy and has been a big help to our club. He put together the information with Morgan Williams for the Dad Martin checklist of exaggeration cards. He did a John V. Dedrick checklist. This was an Oklahoma Territory photographer who was unknown totally, but several of us got together over a period of time and put our Dedricks together and we were able to come up with a story about the man, his photography work, and kind of put old John V. Dedrick on the map. Anyway, that's been fun. We have a Rick Gary checklist, and it needs to be updated. We need Dennis to move back and help us with that project. But anyway, I'm going to show Rick Gary's artwork in just a little bit when we go through some cards. But he's been a big help to us. He's kind of become just our club artist. And he's done maybe 600, 800, 900 postcards all over the world. He's somebody in the modern postcard world that's certainly known, and we helped to put him on the map. He did the very first postcard he ever did was for our second show in 1978, I think. And so that's been fun, and we're just lucky to have somebody that's still alive, that's able to follow us year by year, and we need to be contacting him again for this year. One last thing before I get off. One thing that has helped, I think, make our show and make our club and everything seem more friendly and more exciting maybe is that we meet people at the airport. And it used to be we had more people come in by air that didn't know quite what to do, but a lot of times now people return year after year and they want to have a car. They want to be able to drive to the Wichita Art Museum or to Kansas City to see any number of museums and lists there. But any case, picking them up at the airport, taking them to the motel, and then when their plane's scheduled, taking them back. This was just a small thing. I'm one of the drivers today, and it used to be we had 4 or 5 club members who were busy picking people up at different times of the day and night I remember the Pittman. There were two twin Pittman brothers, and both brothers, married ladies, and all four of them were workers and very much participants in the Wichita Postcard Club. Well, anyway, I'll let it go at that, but that's kind of our club, and we've had a lot of fun, and all of you are a testament to that, and we appreciate everyone being here. But let's go, Michael and Rick. Let's go start looking at some of the cards and things, and show where Rochester is, and show where Wichita is, and we'll get a look here. Okay, there's our title. And there's where Rochester, on the southern banks of the Lake Ontario.
Yeah, we're about roughly 300 miles from New York City. Most people hear New York, they think you're in New York City, but we're not. We're right across the lake is Canada. So half of Lake Ontario is in New York State or in the United States, and the other half's in Canada. And it's not on the map there, but just a little bit west of here, at the very end where Lake Erie starts, is Buffalo, and Toronto is just northwest of Rochester, right on the lake shore in Canada. So that's where we're located.
And the joke about Rochester is that we have 9 months of winter and 3 months of bad sledding, which really isn't true. The sledding's pretty good in the summer. We're, I think, the second snowiest city in the United States.
Wow.
Now this picture here, the postcard, is the Genesee River runs right through the city of Rochester. And this is what's known as High Falls, where the river goes over the falls. Maybe Rick could add something about this.
Yeah, the Genesee River is one of the very few rivers in the United States that flows north, and it flows from Pennsylvania. And these were the falls that finally brought the end to a guy named Sam Patch, who made his living going over waterfalls. And he did this back in the 19th century. And I guess the fellow survived the Niagara Falls and a bunch of other falls, but went over the high falls of the Genesee and I think was never found again or something, but it brought an end to his act.
Oh, dear.
Okay, let's go to the next one, I guess. Okay, this is a postcard that shows Main Street in Rochester, from sort of the center of Rochester, looking west. And I'm not sure what the year is, probably in the 40s sometime or 50s. I noticed that when we were looking at postcards of Wichita, that a lot of these street scenes, like Main Street, they look a lot alike. The architecture, the cars, the older ones with the trolleys. It's amazing how similar they look, a lot of them, from one city to the other.
You know, because it was a time when downtowns, the center of cities, were really the center of the community, and which, you know, is no longer true in most cities. And they were busy places.
Can I throw in the fact that this card is from 1943, and you can tell from the code at the bottom right,
Okay.
it's the Kurtite insignia for dating. The B stands for the 40s, and the 3 at the beginning stands for 43.
Well, you've got very good eyesight.
Well, I had to take off my glasses, but
Good picture.
okay.
Next.
Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, well, again, this is Main Street again, and it was a very prosperous city at that time, because, you know, you had Eastman Kodak that employed at the height of its time between 60 and 70,000 people here, And we also had Bausch and Lomb, which employed about 30,000. And then later on, Xerox was founded here, and they employed, I'm not sure exactly, I think it was 25 to 30,000. And Wollensock, an optical company, was here. This was in some ways sort of the Silicon Valley of the time. And so the downtown was very prosperous in terms of banks and other businesses. And as you can see here, those companies are all either reduced in size, like Kodak, which is what, 2,000 people now, or Bausch and Lomb is here, but it's owned by, we're not sure who owns it now. But the city has had to change drastically over the years because of these huge corporations disappearing. But you can see it was very prosperous. It was also a banking center for the United States at one time.
Okay, next. This is a postcard of an orphanage that is was called the Rochester Orphan Asylum. The original one was in a building downtown in the city. And one night somebody left the gas line on and in the laundry room, I think, and they had a big fire. Several of the kids there died in the fire. And this is a picture of where they rebuilt it a little bit outside of downtown. And so that was an orphanage back. I'm not sure what, I forget what year the fire was. You know, Rick?
I can't remember. I think though it was more. I think the number of children who died might have been close to 60. Because the plot in Mount Hope Cemetery is huge. I think they say 60 or 65 children.
And today that facility, and it's changed a lot, is called the Hillside Children's Center. And now this picture here, this aerial, is of what's known as Kodak Park. You know, Rochester was over the years known for Eastman Kodak Company, and Kodak had a number of probably 5 or 6 different manufacturing facilities, some big, some not as big, throughout the Rochester area. This one is known as Kodak Park, and it was where back in the day when people used to mail their film in to have it developed and printed. This is where it went. Towards the lower left, up a little bit, there's a large building that has no windows where the pointer is. And that was the building that had the darkrooms and stuff that actually processed the film and did the prints. But the industrial park includes the whole foreground of the postcard and also the right-hand side. And it was originally started in 1890. And it's about 4 miles long, the actual industrial park, over 1,300 acres. At one time, it contained more than 150 individual buildings. And they had their own train and produced their own power, their own fire department. It was a very self-sufficient industrial park. Then on the left-hand side, where there's rows of houses, and Rick can talk about that. But today, there's not that much there. Kodak had over the years demolished a number of those buildings because they didn't want to pay the taxes. So it was cheaper to demolish them and pay less tax. And in other buildings there, it's known as Kodak Business Park now, and they've sort of turned it into an industrial park, and there are tenants in there of other businesses that occupy some of those buildings. And Rick, you want to talk more about the residential part?
Those neighborhoods, like where the trees are, Kodak was extremely paternalistic, and the company was never unionized. I mean, no one could get better benefits than a Kodak employee. You could be a roaring junkie, and they keep you on and just send you to a rehab center and welcome you back. You could kill your boss, and they tell you, well, when you get out of prison, come on back. You know, we'll give you a raise and take good care of you. But they also built neighborhoods. And those trees in the background, that's Coda Vista neighborhood. And you could buy houses in it. And Kodak had their own savings and loan company. It was called Eastman Savings and Loan. It's still around. It's now called ESL. You could get very low interest rates on buying a house. And Kodak Park, you can't see in this postcard, this is an older card, goes way, way back into the background and into the town of Greece. And there are buildings there for sale right now. If you want to buy a nice, 1.5 million square foot building, they got them for sale. And George Eastman is in a very beautiful Art Deco kind of shrine in the foreground. You can't see it in this picture, but all the buildings that were around his grave are now gone. And Kodak even thought about moving Eastman back to Mount Hope Cemetery, because this is when they were bankrupt. They didn't want to pay the property taxes on the 1 acre plot of land that he was buried on, because it was taxable property, but the city decided they would let him stay. But Kodak also made their own electricity. And in the 1970s, when New York City had blackouts and brownouts in the summer of '77, and the New York Times listed the utility companies that were supplying the city with power, extra power, like Ontario Hydro and Quebec Hydro, Eastman Kodak was the one company in that list that was privately owned, that was not a utility company. They generated so much power, they could give it to New York City. They didn't rely on anyone. They did everything themselves, their own railroad, their own water purification, you name it, they had it, and they were completely self-contained.
Okay, next.
Alan?
There we go. Rick, go ahead.
Oh, this is, again, center of the city. One of our most common stones around here is Medina sandstone. So a lot of the buildings use that material. And you can see it on the building on the corner. And it's a beautiful stone, came in red or gray. And again, it's typical of downtown. There were a lot of hotels. Business people came here to do business with these huge companies and to do banking. And it was a bustling place. And again, starting in 1983, when Kodak announced it had a losing quarter, the world started to change, and buildings like the Hotel Seneca disappeared. I mean, all of a sudden, business people weren't coming here anymore, and the city had to really scramble to come up with new businesses. And Xerox started to go downhill also at the same time. And so it was a hard bunch of years there. And now the largest employer, we'll see that later, is the University of Rochester, which is also the 4th largest employer in New York State, private employer in New York State. And Kodak only employs 2,000 people. And the president of the company doesn't even live here. He lives in Minneapolis. Last 2 president CEOs. But as you can see, it was a really hustling place.
Now that hotel, the Hotel Seneca, was torn down in 1969, and they built what was known as Midtown Plaza there, which I think was the first indoor mall in the country.
Yeah.
Which is no longer there.
Now.
But that was the center of retail downtown up until how many years ago? I don't know, I guess maybe 20 years ago.
Yeah, and now that's torn down.
Okay, next.
Lots of changes.
This is the interior of the grill room at the Hotel Rochester. And I don't really know a lot about the Hotel Rochester. Do you, Rick?
Well, it was very close to Kodak headquarters. And so it was a popular hotel for people doing business with Kodak. It was just about 3 blocks from Kodak, the executive headquarters of the company. And so they did a booming business, and it was fairly close to the train station. And it later became a dormitory for the Rochester Institute of Technology before they moved out to a new campus. It was the men's dorm. And if you lived there, if you were in a dorm room, you had your own marble bathroom and a walk-in shower or a tub, which everyone used as dark rooms. And so the plumbing was completely corroded by the time RIT moved out to the suburbs, because chemicals for color photography and certain chemicals for black and white really eats up the metal. And so needless to say, there were a lot of leaks for the last couple of years that that building was in existence. It's gone now, it's a parking lot.
Okay. This is another street scene of downtown Rochester at the what's known as the Four Corners, like the center of downtown. And I'm not sure what year that is. And I'm not sure what building that is on the left with the columns.
That was a bank of some sort.
I don't think it's still there today.
No, it's Eastman Kodak headquarters were going north, this is looking north, would have been about half a mile further on. Huge building, which is now mostly Monroe Community College, because Eastman Kodak doesn't really need it, all that space anymore.
Okay, next. Again, another view of different part of East Main Street in downtown with horses and buggies and streetcars. Anything to add, Rick?
No. Except it looks like Wichita, it could be Wichita.
Does look like Wichita.
Well, this is a Strong Hospital. This is an old picture, and we dated this picture because there was no message on the back or anything, by looking at the cemetery across the road, that's Mount Hope Cemetery, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And the empty section, or range as they're called in cemeteries, I walked the lines, grave lines, and the earliest stone was 1958. So that gives you this card came out before 1958. And the University of Rochester is our largest employer now, and this building has been added on to, and is now, square footage is the second or third largest building in New York State. There's the medical school, the research institutes, they're all interconnected, and because of our weather. And again, the cemetery across the street is Mount Hope Cemetery, which we'll talk about in a little while. And that was the first municipally owned urban cemetery in the United States. And that opened in 1838. We'll talk about some of the people buried there.
You want to do that now, or?
Oh, we could do it. I think we got one more
Okay.
postcard of possibly the hospital.
Well, there's a picture of a Strong, more current picture.
Yeah.
It's not a postcard, but it gives you an idea what that hospital turned into today.
And that's not even the full hospital. It's to give you an idea, during the pandemic, when the hospital couldn't do elective surgeries, they were losing $2 billion a month. I mean, it's a real. And the neighborhood you see below the hospital is a neighborhood that the University of Rochester helped build for employees, to encourage employees to live near the campus and the hospital.
And the University of Rochester campus is about a half a mile off to the left off that picture today. It's not really within walking distance, but close.
And again, the largest employer. I mean, Kodak is most people who are under 25 don't even know what Kodak is, except it's a name that's on top of a building that's lit up at night. I mean, that's how quickly people forget.
Okay, next.
Okay, that's the LILAC collection, which is on the southern hill in the city. And it's the largest collection of lilacs in the world. And they have a lilac festival every year. And it's funny, on the back of on the postcard, you can see on the hill in the background the television tower. And the back of the card mentions the lilacs, but it also talks about the fact that Rochester has its own television station, and they tell you what the station is. And Michael and I were on a local news program promoting our postcard club, and we suddenly realized that the station they were promoting on the back of the card was the station we were talking from. And so we were able to mention that on the program. It was the first television station in Rochester, but you know, it was something you mentioned because it was this was a card you sent out to people. And you know, back in those days, if you had a television station, you were on the map. You know, you weren't just some backwater. You had something people could do in the hotel or the motel. Let's watch whatever was on back in those years.
Okay, next. I think that's a lot. Oh, one more.
Actually, I think we're going to have to go back to the Strong Memorial Hospital because I realize we don't have any postcards of Mount Hope Cemetery. So if we could go back a little ways and just quickly talk about the cemetery. There. Now, Mount Hope Cemetery, the northern end of the cemetery is very, very hilly. And it's the same chain of hills that you saw with the Hillside Children's Home and the Lilac Festival. And it's a high Victorian cemetery. These huge monuments, magnificent monuments in the woods, not lawns. It's all, you know, woodland. And you're walking around and you come across a huge mausoleum and surrounded by ferns and whatever. And the cemetery is where Susan B. Anthony and Frederick Douglass are buried. They were both local people. Some of the other people buried there are Hartwell Carver, who came up with the idea of the Transcontinental Railroad. And Humphrey Bogart's family is buried there, including Maud Humphrey Bogart, who came from Rochester originally. Or Maud Humphrey, as you probably would know her. She made postcards and she was an illustrator. And she bought the main stone for the family plot. And they're in the old section, so you've got to walk through the woods to find it. It's a magnificent little section in a glen. And the Strong Memorial Hospital is named after Alva Strong, who made his first fortune, and it was a hell of a fortune. He was probably worth $100 million from making buggy whips. Because, you know, in the 19th century, you needed a whip. and you know, you had to, you know, you had a buggy, you needed a whip. And when the buggy whip business started to go flat, he became a partner of George Eastman's and made another fortune. He was one of the very early partners of the Eastman Kodak company. And just a couple of other people who were buried there. The Glazer family, it's a local family here in Rochester, and they own the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Manchester United. And they have a rather, well, I don't like it. It's sort of Egyptian modern style, huge arch with burial for 30 people up at the northern end of the cemetery. And George Washington's drummer boy is buried here, and Buffalo Bill's children. And Edward Crone, who is not known to many people, but was if any of you ever read Slaughterhouse-Five, he was the person that the main character in the book by Kurt Vonnegut was fashioned after. And his body was transferred here after World War II and put back in its family plot. But the cemetery is a stunning place. We get cemetery tourists from all around the world coming here to drive around, again in the northern section. Although the southern section down here by the campus also has a couple of old sections going back to the 1850s. And it's a magnificent place. But again, it was the first cemetery owned by the city. And thank you for someone correcting me about the number of children who were killed in the fire. It was 28 children who were killed in that fire. But they are buried in just a large plot. And there's a small monument. And to show you how democratic, I guess it would be a small d, cemetery it is, right across this narrow road from that plot where these, is Alva Strong's mausoleum, a huge mausoleum with stained glass windows. And so you'd have the nameless, and then someone like Strong buried right next door. And actually that occurs all through the cemetery with paupers fields, the Jewish poor lot, a bunch of Jewish poor lots, because no names, people didn't have the money for stones, but the city would bury them.
Most interesting.
Okay, back to the other card there that we were on.
Yeah.
I think that's the last one, maybe.
Oh, that's fine. Oh, and that's downtown, and that large dark gray building was the headquarters for the Xerox Corporation. And I don't know much about the tax structure in Connecticut, but apparently it was more advantageous for people in that bracket to live in Connecticut than to live in New York State. So the executives all moved to Connecticut, and the rest of the company stayed here. The building to the left is the Bausch and Lomb building. And again, it's the same thing. The company was sold, and we don't even know where the headquarters are now. The company is still here, but that building is now owned by a law firm, and a local law firm. And in the north, in the very up, you can't really see it all that well, is Lake Ontario, and the river is the Genesee River. Again, the river you saw the falls earlier on. But this is an old postcard. This is from the 1970s. So there are more buildings now. So it's a city, we've had to redefine ourselves. And now we're a medical technology center. And Eastman Kodak makes printing presses. And the only film they make is Eastman Color, which is a motion picture film, and that's made to order. They don't make all the products. If you ever see their name, those products are licensed to other companies. One other thing Eastman Kodak did do, it invented the digital camera. And that was invented in the early 70s by someone in the research center. And the digital camera was taken to the executive committee for them to look at, to decide whether they wanted to manufacture it. And the head of the company at the time, a man named Walter Fallon, listened to the presentation by the person who invented the digital camera. And he thanked the man and asked him to leave the room. And then he turned to the man's supervisor, and his comment was, did he do this on company time or his own time? And this guy's job was on the line. Luckily, he did it on his own time. And that was the last you heard of the digital camera until, I don't know, 20 years later, 25 years later. But that was the story with Kodak. They stopped changing, and they lost touch with the growing technologies. And I don't know who came up with someone else came up with a digital camera, and Kodak lost out on that. But it was a Kodak employee invention, the research center.
Okay, next.
Very good. This is Kansas. And folks see Kansas City up there, and we're south central Kansas. Denver and Colorado's to our west or just to the left. Nebraska on top up there, Lincoln and Omaha. Oklahoma City just straight south. In any case, let's go to the first slide of a postcard. This is our Peerless Princess of the Plains book that got us started. Published in 1976, 189 full-color views of early Wichita. That just gives you an idea of the format. Several sentences for a description. It was a lot of fun to do, a lot of fun to be a part of. It's the only book that I've ever seen, really, that the authors' names don't appear any place, not on the spine, not on the cover, not on the title page. They're on the very last page. And I didn't make a picture of that. It doesn't matter. But and the reason was there were three of us who did it, and one of them especially, his mother, was concerned that this might be a failure, and she didn't want her son associated with a failure. So that's the man's passed away now, so everyone's gone, and here I am, the little kid that was working on it back in 76, and here we are all those years later. Let's go on to the first postcard. This is downtown Wichita looking east on Douglas Avenue. It's fun to just see all of the people in town, obviously for a parade. And there on the right, those really are elephants. They look like big beetles or something from this height. But you can see lots of times, anytime you have a tall building, a tower, the top floor, a roof, that's a good place for a photographer to go to get a bird's eye view of the city or whatever is down below. But that just shows the kind of turnout that you used to get. And look at all those people clear on down there, too. But the elephants were going out to the circus ground, which were a couple of miles east of this area here. Next slide, please, or next picture. That's our the Boston store, a very famous store here in town. The one next to it is the Beacon building, a newspaper building that's still there and renamed something. And this beautiful structure here, we're going to, I think, see another picture of it later. But anyway, it's our old city building. But today it's the Wichita Sedgwick County Historical Museum. Lots of times when people come here for the week ahead of the postcard show, they'll do museum tours or go to different places. Damaris Swint is real good about taking especially newcomers around to show them. But this is really a good place to go to see early Wichita. Next picture. This is, I think, this is Roadside America. It's North Broadway, which is one of our big highway, I won't embarrass myself and give the wrong name, but it's on North Broadway. The railroad tracks were across the street, and on this side was this gigantic apple. And I can remember it as a kid driving by it. It was had seen better days at that point. Here it was as a grocery store, and you can see it's two-level. So there was, I don't know if an apartment or storage or this is where the kids slept or what. I don't know that story. But the kicker is that all of this covering is kind of like, I don't say it's corrugated metal, but it's metal. And look, there are no trees around it. And so just think of that being a hot box during the summer when we have 90, 100, 110 degree days. And it seems like they had a lot more of them back then. But here they must have had a cabin out back, cabin for rent, in the Conoco filling station or service station next door. It's iconic and it's always in the books. This is a neat card in that the card was printed, obviously, before the building itself was finished. So this is an architectural drawing. And it's neat because the back of the postcard says, big opening Saturday, June 14th, 1941. Free gifts and special bargains. Well, that's fun. And it's right there on East Douglas. It's a parking lot today. And it was just a real pretty Art Deco like linen postcard. It's hard to find. So you have a lot of crossover collectors wanting this for being an oil company, wanting it for being a service station, wanting it for being a linen, advertising. It's almost poster-like. Next one. This is now that's 1941 for that service station. And here we are during the World War II. This would have probably been about 1944, but it's building the B-29 Super Fortress here in Wichita by Boeing. Wichita has long been called the air capital of the world. In the old days, we had Boeing, Beech, Cessna, and even Learjet came along. And different things have happened. It's almost the same story as what you just heard about Rochester, but lots of changes through the years. This is a wonderful picture in that it was taken at night, and they brought out a plane out of the hangar where they're working on them or building them, and then they had their Boeing fire department come down and, you know, lay a little bit of water there, which gave it the reflection and became, you know, looks like an important picture. Well, it really is. The photographer is thought to be Laura Gilpin, who went on after the war. She lived here during the war, was Boeing photographer day and night, and then afterwards she moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and became famous for a book on Navajo Indians, and she just had the rest of her career and fame and everything there in the Southwest in Santa Fe. But I love this picture. This is the plane that delivered the bombs, or at least it's a model of the plane, and they had to increase the size or make adjustments and everything to deliver the atomic bombs to Japan. But those two were B-29s, but this was just one of the things that we made here in Wichita to help win the war. Next picture. This is our baseball diamond, and I don't want to say it's funny because this has been torn down now and it's been replaced with a brand new baseball diamond, but it was unable to open last year because of COVID. Maybe they'll open this year, we don't know. We don't have a new contemporary postcard, so I'm showing you one that's probably 15 years old, maybe a little bit older. Across the road or the river, that's the Arkansas. And that's always hilarious because if you live in Arkansas, it's pronounced Arkansas. But if you come here and look at our river, we call it the Arkansas River and not the Arkansas River. It's hard for people to grasp that. This is our city cultural center where we have plays, theaters, performing arts, and so forth. Century 2, and it's one of those that now there's a big toot to tear it down and build something new, and you know, that's the way it goes. But we'll see what happens. Right now, this is kind of a documentary postcard of what that baseball diamond used to look like. And the new one, of course, is bigger and finer and probably more, we just don't know. I haven't seen a new postcard of it. Next one. This is our pride and joy. This is the Allen Lamb home, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, built by him. The work was done in 1915, the design, and then it was built in 1916 and 1917. Henry J. Allen was the owner of the Beacon newspaper, I believe, and got into politics and became, I believe, a governor of Kansas. So they really, at about that time is when they moved to Topeka to be a governor and Mrs. Governor and so forth. But today, thank goodness, it's been saved and preserved, and it's part of, it's an open, or you can go through it, do tours, and we've had several Wichita Postcard Club where we've had the theme of our show is architecture, and then one of our members just happens to be the director of the house, and so he arranges for us to have a special tour. Anyone who wants to do it, we make a time and everything. But it's a great place to go, and they have a nice gift shop, and it's just an interesting, wonderful prairie house. Maybe one of the last and maybe one of the best of Frank Lloyd Wright's prairie homes. I think that's, no, one more card. This is a grouping of the 3 cards that our members receive each year. This is for 2020. I'm sorry about the date. But this was last year's card, and this was the show card when we didn't get to have the show because of our the COVID that we're going through now, the pandemic. So whether we get to have a show this year, that's still up in the air. The place that we have it, they're not allowing reservations for that space right now. We hope that changes. Anyway, each club member is given a member postcard. You know, usually a member card is something that fits in your billfold. Well, we wanted a postcard. So we have this member postcard with the person's name on the other side and everything. Then we do also participate in National Postcard Week, and have, I think, since about 1985 when it started here in this country. And I say that because they celebrate National Postcard Week in England and other places throughout the world. But these are the 3 cards, and all of this is artwork by Rick Gary. You can Google his name. He's done countless books and comic books and graphic novels. That's what they call them. But lots of work. He's retired and now lives in Carrizozo, New Mexico, which isn't too far from White Sands area in New Mexico where they set off the first atomic bomb. Anyway, that's kind of the story about the club. I think that's the last picture, isn't it, Alan? Yes. And so that's kind of about our club and our what we do and so forth. Let's look at Bill. Can you see, were there any questions or things that we can talk about? Be sure to unmute yourself. No, still muted. There you go. There you go.
A number of people made comments in passing, but they most of them have signed off of the questions because the speaker subsequently answered their questions. Ray Hahn, though, at one point in the very beginning, was talking about or said he wanted to make a comment regarding the Sun Park, was it? Ray, are you here?
Here we are, yes. I wanted to make a comment about Sam Patch. Sam Patch met his end in Rochester, and I have researched him and written about him. If there's any interest, I'll see to it that I find that article and I'll publish it in Postcard History.
Thank you.
Great, great.
Did you know there was a tour boat? There's a tour boat here that somebody started called the Sam Patch. It gives tours, rides up and on the Erie Canal in the area.
I did know that, yes.
Yeah.
I'm living to tell about. He went over.
I see it go by every now and then.
Yeah, Rochester is on Lake Ontario, but it's actually a couple of, I think, 300 or 400 feet higher than Lake Ontario, and so you have to go down 2 or 3 sets of falls before you get to the level of the lake.
Oh,
and
the Rochester Airport.
That's the first falls, and that's right in downtown Rochester. It's quite spectacular.
Yeah, the Rochester Airport's, I think, 560 feet above sea level.
Okay. And I think Lake Ontario's 250 feet above Lake Ontario.
Okay, they were the only.
Or I mean, ocean level.
Long. So over to you, Hal.
There weren't any other questions. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? You can unmute yourself and talk. Or maybe Alan, all of us unmute, or Can you do that for us?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
This is Michael Langenstein. I just wanted to say hello from Dr. Kavaj.
Oh my gosh. My word. Is he okay?
He is good, yes, and he's still thinking about you.
Okay, I'll talk to you.
Okay, great.
Al, I had a question on what is the population of the Rochester city or in the region?
I think, what he said, it's 1 million for the greater Rochester.
I think the city is around 250,000, but the greater Rochester area, which basically includes, I think, 9 surrounding counties, is just under 1 million, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to get a correlation between Wichita's size and the size of Rochester.
Yes. Which one is bigger then? I don't know.
I think the population of Sedgwick County is now about 515,000, I think, for the county.
Okay.
Okay, Hal, Brian Londa's popped in with a comment.
Yes. What was it, Brian?
Yes, I was just saying that we haven't had National Postcard Week in the UK for decades.
Pity.
Oh,
It was at one time it was quite big, and lots of people produced cards. And I know you do still in the States every year, but it's kind of died a death over here.
Understand.
By the way, the population of Monroe County, which is what Rochester's in, is 555,000.
Okay.
Probably similar in size to Wichita.
It sounds very similar. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Oh, there was one thing I forgot to mention. It's sort of funny. In Kodak's heyday, it was referred to as the Great Yellow God. That was another name for the company. Local. I mean, that's what people would call it. You would hear that quite often.
Really.
Yeah.
Great yellow.
The Great Yellow God.
It's just so interesting to hear about. I love that story about the KODAK kids. I mean, it has nothing to do with postcards, but I wish it was on a postcard or more recognition for what a magnanimous thing to do for the company to have done that for their employees living in England. It's just
KODAK children
unbelievable.
whose parents were employed in
They
England.
did them. They again very paternalistic. They paid in I think in the early 1920s. They paid for all the children in Rochester to have their tonsils removed.
Did we talk about the KODAK kids today, or was that?
Yeah.
We talked about, just mentioned it earlier.
Okay.
We had that talk.
They were calling the KODAK kids.
Yeah, they also started the dental school, and they did dental work on the kids in the school in Rochester, and when they first started.
Really?
They just took care of them. Yep.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
And the George Eastman House is on Main East Ave, which is the street that has a lot of the houses of the big giants of the industry, and that's a museum now. But it also underground they have it's that state of the art for reconditioning old movies, and a lot of the old movies are stored under there, and a lot of movie stars that have collections send them over there to be kept.
It's a major restoration center for It's also one of the largest collection of still photographs in the world.
Wow.
Ansel Adams used to come here once a year years ago because he would buy a complete emulsion number of film and a complete emulsion number of paper from Eastman Kodak, and Kodak would supply him with a dark room, and he would go around and he would photograph in the area and then develop it, and he would choose the emulsion number he wanted, and then he would buy that emulsion number for consistency. And so he would give lectures at the Eastman House for the 2 weeks he was here, and you could go and listen to him talk about his work, or Edward Weston or some other photographer who worked at the same time he did.
The first Western Union telegram was sent from Rochester.
That's right.
No, maybe KODAK. Yeah.
The other thing, we might have a lot of snow or have had a lot of snow in the winter, but and all the other seasons, May on into, October, November, the weather here is beautiful. And we have the Finger Lakes right south of us. If you look on a map, you see those as 5 like a hand, but there's even more. They're all glacial, I think, finger. So it's really, I come from New Hampshire, Portsmouth, New Hampshire, but this is really a beautiful place out here. Right outside the city, you're in the farmland, and you can buy your food in the neighborhood things. It's a great place.
Yeah, Humphrey Bogart said that the best memories in his life were the summers he spent along Canandaigua Lake, which is one of the Finger Lakes.
Hey, Kai. Come on.
Oh,
You see what I mean about background noise?
yeah, that's what we were talking about before, right?
There was one scene from one of the Spider-Man movies that was filmed on Main Street in Rochester a few years ago, where all the cars were crashing. I think it was filmed downtown.
Okay.
Leslie Phillips has a comment that she made about Ansel Adams.
Oh, please tell us. Leslie?
Yeah, no, I just wanted clarification about something that Rick said. So the photos that Ansel Adams took while he was here, those were just his test photos, so he could pick out which emulsion he wanted?
They were test photos, but then at one point, the University of Rochester, they knew he was doing this. They asked him to photograph the university. So he did. And apparently there is a book. I remember once, many, many years ago, seeing a copy of it, of photographs he did of the university, all the buildings and the grounds around it. And I can't remember where I saw it, but the Eastman House probably would have it in their collection. But the Eastman House is the largest, I think, one of the largest collections of his work.
Oh.
But he would just photograph and then decide what emulsion numbers he wanted for his film and paper.
Good.
Leslie, I have a follow-up question about the industries in Wichita.
Leslie?
I'm sorry, everything froze up.
You had a further
Can you hear me now?
about what
Yes.
were the industries in Wichita?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just, I was wondering what the main industries or businesses were in historic Wichita, like during Wichita's golden age, or.
Well, golden age, we're a farming, can you hear me okay? We're a farming community, and that means wheat and corn, and it used to be broom corn was a big deal. We have broom corn, like sweeping a broom.
Yeah.
But that was grown here in great quantities and then shipped out other places to make brooms, I guess. And cattle. And so it was farming and agriculture and farm machinery and selling all of that. They had big street fairs, and we know that from postcards and celluloid pinback buttons and posters and things that are in our historical museum. But then at some point we found oil in the surrounding areas, so that helped, and oil, and then the aircraft industry. Some of the oil people had some extra money, so they thought, well, this business of flying an airplane, that looks like fun. So that all developed, and we had Beechcraft and Boeing and Cessna, and then we had Learjet came in my lifetime, and now it's left in my lifetime, or they quit making new planes. They're going to continue servicing the ones they have, but the aircraft industry, and then all of the supporting, all of the people that do the upholstery or parts or something that does something or something. supporting the aircraft industry itself. And so that's what we do in here. And then we have several universities, Friends University and Wichita State University, and around in the area, junior colleges and stuff. Yeah. Does that help?
Hal.
Thank you.
Hal, could
Yes.
you correct me if I don't have the name correct? Is it King Cutter that was there?
Well, I took you on a tour of that building with all of that was a warehouse for the King Cutter. They did scissors and knives and all kinds of things that had to be sharpened. And well, we saw an exhibit. I mean, they did sleds and kid toys and everything. It's made into a hotel today in the historic part of downtown Wichita. And it's 4 or 5 floors. You go up on an elevator and come out, and here's a great big showcase on every floor showing you this man's King Cutter collection. And it's a big deal, but it was a brand name for a hardware.
Hal, is Coleman still located in Wichita?
It's what?
Is Coleman still located in Wichita?
That's right. Coleman Lamp Company. They're here, but they're not what they used to be. They're, into camping things. And Pizza Hut started in Wichita. Then it was bought out by Pepsi-Cola. And now Freddy's Hamburgers. Poor Freddy died the other day, and so his son sold the company. Maybe it's not quite that sinister, but anyway. We're sorry to see Freddy's die, and we're sorry to see Freddy, the hamburger place, change.
It's been pointed out that mentholatum was invented in Wichita.
Yes, that was another thing. A. Hyde, Hyde, he had 4 lovely daughters, or maybe 5, and there are streets named for each of their daughter close to the Hyde, to the mentholatum place. Then they moved to Buffalo, New York. So, but he was very generous with his money, gave a lot to the YMCA, and did a big YMCA camp in Estes Park, Colorado, or outside of Estes Park. And but you're right. Coleman and mentholatum and Pizza Hut and Cessna and Beach, they're all Wichita products at the beginning.
Somebody else has asked about the future of one of the clubs, the Rockland Bergen Club. Is there any sense from anybody whether that club will continue after we finish with the COVID lockdown? Does anybody have an opinion on that or some knowledge?
Well, Ginny is here. Oh, is Ginny available?
Here I am.
Okay, you want to come?
Well, we've only got like 8 participating members. Makes hard to have a meeting. So, and we haven't been able to set up a Zoom type thing.
Yeah.
Some people don't have computers.
I know.
Hey, Hal, would you want to talk a little bit about what you have to do to join your club and how much it costs, and then I can let people know about ours too? Sure.
I'll be glad to mail a application to anyone. You think? I mean, I could. I'm sure I could email it to you too if you'd like to do that. But dues for our club is $15 a year. And you get the 3 Rick Gary postcards. You'll get the member roster that we still have copies of. I'm sorry, it doesn't show very well, but this is 2018, 2021. But at some point, we'll do another one, and you'll get that when it comes out. But I'll be glad to send you this copy, too. Then we have the monthly newsletters, and we have our show when we get to have a show again. We're looking forward to that whenever that happens.
And a Friday night lasagna meeting before the show. 2 members only.
Friday night, the first night of the show. Friday.
Oh, yes, we have a members only that come to our show. Our show is advertised for Saturday and Sunday, but we have a Friday night members night for the club members. The show opens to them at 6:30, where we don't check and make sure your dues have been paid or anything like that. It's free and open, but the show itself is advertised to the public for Saturday, Sunday, so they usually don't know. But if you're coming from a distance, my gosh, join the club. You can do that at the registration desk, and that's a place where a lot of people pay their dues too.
Hal, are there very famous people from Wichita who have gone on to do bigger and better things?
Yeah, help me, Phil. Help me, Alan.
Robert Gates.
Bob Gates, the Secretary of Defense most recently, and he was head of CIA. But we graduated from East High School together, and even went to the prom together. Neither of us were big on dating, but we did that night and got through it, lived through it. Who else? Hattie Williams, who was in Gone with the Wind. Louise Brooks.
Daniel.
Grew up. What?
Hattie McDaniel.
Annie McDaniels. Hattie, that doesn't sound quite right.
Hattie.
Hattie, Hattie.
Yes.
McDaniels, yes. And
didn't Louise Brooks end up in Rochester?
Yes, she did. She lived here and she's buried here.
Well, well, we have that in common. That's interesting.
She came here because of the Eastman House. She was great friends with the curator of motion picture, a man named James Card, and he encouraged her to move here, and she helped them. Somehow they restored some of her films here.
Oh, how nice.
I think they also helped her during the last years of her life. And then when she died, she's buried in one of our cemeteries here.
Yeah, how nice. She was actually born, I think, elsewhere, but grew up a number of years and went to school and had a dance studio and so forth in Wichita before she went on to the big screen. But Phil, can you think of other people? I'm embarrassed that I can't.
Well, Christy Alley, the actress, is living back in Wichita now after her fame on television and in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I think Barry Sanders, a Hall of Fame running back for Detroit, came from Wichita.
Exactly.
Yes, she did.
Howell, there was a very famous lineman came from Wichita.
A very
famous. There was a very famous lineman. It was a song by Glenn Campbell, and that was my first introduction to Wichita.
Yes. Wichita lineman. That's right. Yeah.
Well, actually, I'd like to ask the Lunds in Nottingham, how is Manchester United doing?
Second at the moment. Manchester United are second in the Premier League.
Okay.
Nottingham Forest are in the second division, unfortunately.
Hal?
Yes.
The Koch brothers companies in Wichita.
Definitely.
The largest privately held company in the United States.
Right. Charles Koch lives here with his wife and family. Yes. My son works for him, so why did I not think of that?
I think you hinted at it. Wichita at one time was the largest manufacturer of airplanes in the world. More were made there than any other place in the world.
Wow.
Because all the small passenger planes.
Private aircraft. Yeah. Sure.
Well, if anybody's interested, I just want to mention that our club, if anybody wants to join it, the dues is $10 a year for an individual, or $15 for a couple or family at the same address. And there is an application form you could easily download from our website at wnypostcardclub.com. We have our show is just one day, Sunday, the same weekend. Maybe we should change ours so people can go to both if they want. Change our date.
Will you pick me up at the airport?
Pick you up,
Yeah, we're
absolutely.
gonna pick you up at the airport.
We could fly you out there in our private club plane.
Yeah.
This has been so nice to be with everybody, and it just seems like family for sure.
Right.
Whether you're in Rochester or Wichita. Any other comments or anything anyone wants to make?
I have nothing on the chat line, so.
Okay. Michael, did you want to? I'm embarrassed to talk about your next program, but do you want to say when that will be, your next club meeting?
Well,
Yeah,
you're
I
our
gotta
speaker,
look it
Hal.
up real quick. We have hang on a second here. We got them planned. Oh yeah, that's we have a really well-known speaker, Hal Ottaway. He's going to talk about pyro photo, real photo postcards, and that's going to be on. We normally meet. Our meetings are Monday evening, usually the first Monday of the month. So our next meeting is April 5th at 7 o'clock Eastern time, and so Hal's going to be our speaker. So we're looking forward to that, and everybody's invited. If you, in order to get the link, the Zoom link, you have to go to our website. Well, I'm sure Hal can email them out to everybody too, but if you go to our website, you can just opt in to our email list with your email address, and then you'll get the emails with the information, the reminder of the meeting, and the link as well. Then we have another one. Wait a minute, I got to make sure I have it here. On May 4th, that's a Tuesday because of speaker conflict, but at 7 o'clock on May 4th, we have the topic's going to be Coney Island postcards, and the presenter is Bob Yorberg. Some of you may know. I don't know if from the Metropolitan Club. I don't know if he lives down around there. I think. Or no, where does he live? Susan knows.
If you could share
know
with
him,
the
might know
with
him. He's living upstate near me right now,
Okay.
but he used to live in Westchester County, and he's done programs for us on Coney Island and on woodworking. So he's special. He's also a magician, a circus MC, and a railroad aficionado, a miniature railroad aficionado. So he's an entertaining fellow.
Yeah, he's a wood carver too. Carves the ornamental wood for carousels, I think, or right?
Well, he repairs carousels, but
Okay.
he does wood carving, and I can't remember the name of the type of woodwork he does, but the trim or whatever. He also repairs music boxes and fortune teller machines and so forth. Entertaining fellow.
That sounds.
I'd love to get a link to that meeting.
We'll go to their website.
Your email in, and you can get it.
Yeah. Bill, do you want to say anything more about yours postcard history? Yours and Ray?
I put the website address on at the very beginning of the chat.
Okay, but
It's pretty straightforward, www.postcardhistory.net. I think most of you are probably in some way or another on either our mailing list or friends on Facebook. But if not, please feel free to drop in, mainly because it's free. And we do 4 articles a week. Free is good. And we'd love to have you there. Comment on any of the articles you feel interested in. But that's what we are.
That's good. That's good. We appreciate your help today, Bill. That's 4 articles on postcards every week, free, illustrated. Some great ones. Lots of interesting. You think, well, that doesn't interest me, but just read it and you'll find out differently. Rayhan just does a wonderful job of editing and putting that together and crafting just terrific. And you remember Ray from last month's program for us on the French Railroad destination postcards. So exciting and fun. Our next club meeting will be April 3rd, the first Saturday of the month at 1:45 again. We'll send out reminders or whatever. And we just thank everybody for coming. And if there's anyone have anything else they'd like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to, I want to just thank you, Hal, and Alan. People don't realize how much planning and work went into this meeting, hours and hours. And Hal and Alan did that work. So I want to thank both of you and for doing that,
Thank
and
you
also
very
for
much.
having us here with you. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. It's just been wonderful, really.
Great meeting the two of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
lot of fun.
Thank you.
And all
Thank
of
you.
you.
It was
You
great
too,
meeting
and
you
you
all.
too, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Bill Burton too. Thank you.
And Michael
Thank you.
Langenstein, I'll call you this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Mike,
everyone.
Great weekend.
talk to you about Dr. Kuva.
Dr.
We hope
Kavash.
Manchester United continues to do well.